Welcome, everybody. Welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow dregs to society. Welcome, all you rock dwellers. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, joining you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. And joining me today as my co-host is the president and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom, and that is George Landrith. George, welcome back to Conservative Commandos.
It is great to be here. This is the place to be. If you're not here, you're basically not anywhere.
That's right. That's right. Well, George, the lunacy of the left is going to be kind of a topic of our show today. But every time, George, you turn on the TV, you turn on the radio, you listen to the news, you hear more and more lunacy coming out of the left, including those who are actually running for president. And you know, it scares me a little bit, George. It was Ronald Reagan who said that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. I think we are down to one election. But Pete Buttigieg has his own ideas of revising history.
Yeah, that he does. And the funny thing is he's marketing himself as, quote, a kind of Midwestern moderate. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying he is that, so don't start calling up and saying George just said Pete Buttigieg is a moderate. I'm not. I'm saying that's what he says about himself, and so just keep that in mind. So this is the moderate, and he, the moderate in quotes. He basically said, he came out and said he wanted to eradicate the memory of Thomas Jefferson, and that, quote, that was the right thing to do. So the author of the Declaration of Independence and one of our founding fathers and the third president of the United States, he needs to be eradicated from our history. It's like, what? And and this is a, quote, moderate. And he was talking to a conservative. He was talking on Hugh Hewitt's show, and this is where he said this. So it's not like we caught him somewhere, weird.
Well, but George, it makes me think. I guess he wants the memory of Thomas Jefferson eradicated because Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner. And I'm not going to sit here, George, and defend slavery as an institution, but we have to remember a couple of things. Slavery at that time was part of the society. They had no idea 250 years later that people would consider slavery as horrible as it was, but at the time, slavery for a large part of our country was the exception. So if he wants to eradicate the memory of slavery, George, would he also want to eradicate the memory of the Ku Klux Klan? Would he also want to eradicate the memory of segregation? Would he also want to eradicate the memory of those who voted for equal voting rights? Well, George, if the answer to that is yes, just as he wants to eradicate the memory of Thomas Jefferson, then he has to eradicate the memory of his party, the Democrat Party, because it was the Democrat Party that was responsible for the Ku Klux Klan. It was the Democrat Party.
It was their military arm, basically.
Exactly. It was the Democrat Party that was responsible for segregation. It was the Democrat Party that fought for years and years and years to stop black Americans from having voting rights. So, Pete Buttigieg, you have to decide, do you really want to eradicate the memory of Thomas Jefferson? If so, then you need to eradicate the memory of your own party. Or maybe you have already eradicated the memory of what was the Democrat Party, the founding party of the Ku Klux Klan, the supporters of Planned Parenthood. And by the way, Planned Parenthood was started by a woman who was a racist, who started Planned Parenthood because she wanted to eradicate the weeds of our society. Meaning,
yeah, she was worse than a racist. She was a eugenicist.
Yes.
I mean, a racist may be somebody who tells like inappropriate jokes or something, but doesn't intend to kill anybody. I mean, in theory, it could be. Mm-hmm. My point is she was a eugenicist. She basically said we need to get rid of the undesirables.
Mm-hmm. Hey, George, there was, I know you have another example of liberal lunacy, but I do too. Recently, over the weekend, there was some graffiti scrawled across the church saying that you have no right to tell us what to do. It is a woman's right to abortion. We have a right to determine our own bodies. So, George, if the church has no right to tell us what to do, I guess the church has no right to tell us not to go out and rob, not to go out and rape, not to go out and kill, not to do these other terrible things either, George.
I guess the Ten Commandments are off the books now.
Everything's off the books, George, because you don't have the right to tell us what to do with our bodies.
Well, I was thinking about this issue, and I thought to myself, they complained about the fact that these legislatures that were predominantly male, not exclusively, but predominantly male, have passed laws limiting and narrowing when an abortion could take place. Mm-hmm. And one of the complaints was they were men doing it. So I thought to myself, I have a simple solution. All these men should simply self-identify in a world of gender fluidity as females, then vote to limit. And then vote to limit the abortion rights, and then they can switch back and be males again. And then when the left criticizes them for having done this as males, they can say, oh, no, I didn't do it as a male. The day I did that, I self-identified as a female. And it's very insensitive of you to not recognize how I identified myself. And the fact that you're now referring to me as a he on that given day is outrageous. I'm shocked by the hate that I'm hearing from you. Isn't that kind of the taking all of their garbage to its logical focal point?
Oh, indeed it is. Indeed it is. And you're right when you call it garbage. Absolutely right.
This is the insane world the left would have you live in.
Yeah. Well, George, these peaceful, tolerant people apparently do not like people that work in the oil industry.
Oh, yeah. No, very interesting article out. I was shocked when I saw it. And it was this idea that, you had a letter to the editor. It was published, incidentally. So the editor decided it was worthwhile to publish it. And the editor published a letter in which a local citizen in Colorado said that they would not have a problem if a sniper started picking off oil and gas workers at a oil and gas site. So they're working on site, and somebody up in the mountains or in the canyons hiding behind rocks, if they were to start shooting at them and killing them, that would be okay, according to this letter writer. Now let me ask you, who do you think this letter writer voted for in 2016? Do you think they voted for Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, I would. My knee-jerk reaction is somebody like that, somebody that's professing violence, somebody that's professing gun violence, somebody that's professing taking law into their own hands. Well, the left would tell you it's got to be Donald Trump himself. That's what the left would tell you, George.
Yeah. But the reality is, I think we all know that was the Democratic voter writing this. I know that that's what the New York Times would claim, but the reality is nobody reads this letter and says, wow, that sounds like somebody who attended the Republican National Convention. It's just not. And I just find it very interesting that that's where we're at today, that not only did a person write that letter, but that a editor decided it was worth publishing.
Indeed. George, when you publish something, there are enough kooks out there who will read this letter and act on it. For instance, whenever you have a copycat crimes, a crime, you have a lot of copycat crimes. Well, these copycat crimes come from the idea of seeing the crime perpetrated. Oh, well, we'll go do that. And so, oh boy, what a mess. Hey, George, we do need to take a break. On the other side, we're going to tell our audience about our guests. We got 3 great guests joining us once again here on Conservative Commandos, also of several very interesting topics. But you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landrith. George is the president and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom, and I'm just Rick Trader. And we're coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. Today's show, got to remind you, every day we do a show, but today's show, like all our shows, is brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. And no, we don't want you to go shoot anybody. Don't go away. We will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is George Landrith, President and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom. For rebroadcast of our shows, you won't be able to find it on Facebook because we're still on a permanent Facebook ban. But for rebroadcast of our shows, go directly to our website, ccrshow.com. ccrshow.com. Not only will you find our radio show, our TV show, but a lot of great articles and a lot of great information. Not fake news, as Facebook wants you to believe, but accurate information. George, we've got 3 great guests joining us once again.
We do. Before we jump to those guests, I just want to point out, I think the reason why Facebook keeps banning us and putting us in Facebook jail, as you've identified, is because
no, it's not Facebook jail, George. It's Facebook execution.
Okay, the death penalty.
You cannot put anything, any link from anything of www.ccrshow.com, which is our website address, onto any link on Facebook. They will send you a note that says, this website violates our community standards.
Well, there you go. See, I think what that shows is that Facebook believes that conservative principles violate community standards.
Well, there
you go. I think that's where I was going with that. Is I think that's what their claim is going to be, is that doggone it, conservative commandos, you guys violate our standards because we only like liberals here at Facebook. What do you think?
George, I think you're dead right on.
Yeah. Well, we do have some great guests, as you said. First up, we've got Timothy Snowball, and he's an attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation. He's in their Sacramento office. He practices in a variety of areas, focusing on things like free speech, equal protection under the law, administrative law to make sure the administrative state doesn't get too big and gangly. It looks at issues like economic liberty and property rights as well. So we're going to talk with him and talk about socialism. So I think it'll be an interesting conversation.
Yep.
And since he's from the Pacific Legal Foundation, I'm pretty sure he's not going to be a big fan of socialism. But stay tuned. You never know.
So. You never know. Could be a surprise there, but
that's right. We'll throw you a curveball.
Yeah.
But anyhow, our next guest after that is a friend of the show's. He's been on many times, and I know him personally. He's a friend of mine, Seton Motley. He's the president of Less Government, and they, you will be shocked to find out, are dedicated to less government. Truth in labeling. I mean, come on, that's awesome. So anyhow, but they of course protect the First Amendment from assault by the government, and of course, you know that Seton's a writer, he's a commentator on radio and television, he's a strategist, lecturer, debater, etc. And we're always glad to have him on, and we're going to talk to him some about government-run schools, and we may even steer into some internet issues and how the left wants desperately to run the entire internet, as they seem to be doing pretty well with Facebook,
Google, YouTube, Instagram.
They want to be able to do that to everybody.
Yeah,
it's because it's not enough to keep you off of Facebook or make you a difficult person to find on Facebook, or on the internet in general. They probably want to ban your site, so it won't be enough to kill your link. If they can get things like net neutrality through, eventually they'll be able to turn off the Conservative Commandos site altogether. Frontiers of Freedom, altogether. Just boom, it's gone. But anyhow, I'm pretty cynical when it comes to government using power. My experience has been when government has power, they use it to their advantage, not ours. Yes. But anyhow, and our third and final guest is Dave Daubenmire. He is a high school football coach, been doing it for years. He got really involved in all of, kind of what you might call conservatism or first principles of our nation when he was attacked and sued by the ACLU for mixing prayer with his coaching. Because after all, a coach should never be caught praying or allow his players to play. In fact, if you're the ACLU, he was supposed to stop those kids if they tried to pray, and probably make them run extra laps after practice for having the temerity to pray. But he wouldn't do that, and so they jumped on his case. But at any rate, we'll have him on, and we'll be talking about one of the interesting issues of the day, which is the left's just full embrace of being the party of death. There was a time when people like Bill Clinton talked about abortions being safe, legal, and rare. No more talk of that. No. Well, they're certainly not going to be safe. I'm sure they'd like them to remain legal, but they don't want them to be safe or rare, and that they're the party of death. So I'll have a good conversation with Coach Dave. So that's what we got coming up. I think it'll be very interesting.
All right. Indeed. We got 3 great guests, lots of great topics here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Well, George Landrith, what else is on your radar screen today?
Well, one of the things I think is interesting is I consider it kind of interesting that Governor de Blasio threw his hat to the ring. My understanding is that even locals think this is a bad idea, that his wife thought it was a bad idea. And, local police certainly do not support him. But bottom line is, this is a guy who has been a disaster as a mayor. And he wants to do to America what he's been doing to New York City. It's, and I'm not trying to bag on New York City, but obviously Rudy Giuliani did a very good job of cleaning things up and getting things back on track. And he did such a good job that many New Yorkers felt like, well, we don't really need a grown-up to run things anymore. We can go ahead and go back to the days of David Dinkins. So they did. They went back to David Dinkins, except they did worse. And so they've got, this, complete whack job as a mayor who's slowly destroying the country. And one of my favorite things about his announcement was when he said, "I will not rest until," and then he kind of listed all the things he wanted to do. And it's like, you will not rest? Have our listeners looked at his schedule? He doesn't even show up to the mayor's office until after lunch. So, it's like, you got to be kidding me. He's like a part-time mayor. And all I can say is, we should be very, very happy that we're not getting all the mayor we're paying for, because this guy's awful. If we were getting all the mayor we were paying for, it'd be terrible. So nobody go out there and say things like Bill de Blasio should be showing up, at first thing in the morning to work like everyone else. No, please don't. Let him take off the first half of every day. That will limit the amount of damage he can do.
George, I used to say the same thing during the Obama administration. And people were criticizing Obama for the golf that he used to play every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. He used to play golf. How he was so involved in the Final Four and picking his brackets, and they criticized him. And I says, please don't criticize him. This is a good thing, because when he's out shooting hoops, when he's out playing golf, he's not in the Oval Office destroying our country.
Yeah, he's not using his pen or his phone to ruin the country.
George, when you were saying that, he said, "I will not rest until I did this. I would not rest till I did that." Made me think of Jimmy Carter. Do you remember Jimmy Carter during the Iran hostage crisis?
Yeah, like 45 days of that crisis.
We will not light Christmas trees until those hostages are released. Remember, that was one of the years without a national Christmas tree. All right? He said, "I won't leave the White House until the release." Well, he spent his entire term in the White House doing not a damn thing because he made an idiotic statement like that.
Yeah. It'd been nice if he actually done something to free the hostages. It was kind of interesting that Ronald Reagan's election alone did the trick.
Yes.
He didn't have to do anything. He just got elected, and then boom, they're like, "Okay, here, take them. We don't want these hostages anymore."
Well, the Iranians knew they weren't dealing with an idiot, a weakling like Jimmy Carter. And that's another, there are so many polls out today that says that Barack Obama is the most admired president of our lifetime. Well, I don't understand that. But when I look about the accomplishments of Barack Obama, I can think of one. And that is Jimmy, in my opinion, and a lot of others, Jimmy Carter is now not the worst president of our lifetime, but Barack Obama. So,
yeah, I think Jimmy Carter's got to love Barack Obama. He's like, "Thanks, you got me off the worst list."
Yeah,
at least off the top of it.
A lot of people like that too. Hey, George, let's take our next break and get our first guest in here. And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landrith and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. On the other side, we're going to have Timothy Snowball joining us. He's an attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation, and we're going to be discussing an article that he had published on the Hill. Socialism is neither a fair nor progressive political philosophy. Don't go away. George and I will be right back with our guest.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is George Landrith. George is the president and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom. Want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, in the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and our newest station, which is in Arlington, Virginia, Washington, D.C. And with that, George, we do have our first guest with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Absolutely. We're very excited to have Timothy Snowball with us. He's an attorney at the at the Pacific Legal Foundation. He's in their Sacramento office, and he practices in a variety of areas, but focuses primarily on free speech, equal protection under the law, administrative law, keeping government in its lane, so to speak, and so it's not overreaching. And he also does a lot of work in economic liberty and property rights. And so with that, Tim, welcome to the Conservative Commandos.
George, thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here in the trenches with the Commandos.
Well, we are glad you're here. You know, you've written a really good article, and it's about socialism and how it's not progressive, it's not fair, so let's just talk a little about socialism, because I think for a lot of people, they are misinformed and believe that socialism is about being fair. It's about trying to have correct the inequality that sometimes can exist in a market-based economy. And when I hear that kind of talk, I always scratch my head and go, so the alternative is that government bureaucrats will decide what's fair? But anyhow, why don't you tell us let's walk through this problem.
Well, sure. I think you've identified probably the primary point, right? Which is that, socialism has become kind of a hashtag on Twitter or some other social media platform, right? Where it kind of loses all of what actually made it a harmful political ideology in the 20th century. I mean, any economist worth their salt or any historian who studied even the barest, machinations of the 20th century will tell you that every time that socialism has actually been tried in practice, it's led to the misery and death of millions upon millions of people, right? It's a failed system. It's never worked once. And we don't even need to consult the history book. We can look at Venezuela to see exactly how this type of thing plays out generally. Shortages, corruption, a basic breakdown of institutions in society, and people wind up either starving or rioting in the street. And so it's an interesting thing to see, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and different, politicians coming out now and claiming this mantle of socialism, and actually having Americans get behind it is curious because of the harmful effects. But as you mentioned, we're not even really sure what people mean by socialism. Do they mean a large social safety net? Do they mean seizing the means of production? Do they mean seizing property and redistributing it? And so that's part of the problem is, how do we even combat these bad ideas when the people who are proposing them aren't even really capable or don't seem wanting to provide a concrete definition?
Absolutely. And I mean, in the case of someone like AOC, I suspect she's not capable of telling you what she actually believes in, because I get the impression the more I hear her talk, the more I think she's an empty-headed idiot. But for many, I'm much more cynical. And I think they try to, when we point out things like Venezuela or the former Soviet Union or China or any other number of places where socialism has created misery and suffering, widespread, they'll say, oh, that's not the kind we're talking about.
Right.
We're talking about Norway or Sweden. I'm like, well, they have a very large social, kind of social net as a backdrop. But the reality is they get very upset when people call them socialist. I've seen their parliamentarians and members of their national government point out that, they don't seize private property. The government doesn't own the means of production, but that they do have a large social security sort of, I don't mean social security like our program, but a security net. But they pay a price for that. They have very slow and very anemic economic growth. Most of Europe has effectively had no real economic growth in the last 2 decades.
Right. And to the degree they had, it's largely been, a product of deregulation and entrepreneurial free market capitalism, right? I mean, one of my favorite quotes I remember is seeing, an old interview with Milton Friedman and Phil Donahue, where, Friedman makes the point, he goes, there has never been a system yet discovered that can hold a candle to the productive capabilities of entrepreneurial free market capitalism. We literally know no better way to lift the poorest people out of poverty. And so it's an interesting thing to think that the United States now has advanced to the point of having such material wealth. I mean, the poorest people in the United States now, relative to people living 200 years ago, 150 years ago, 100 years ago, are living like kings.
Or around the globe. I mean,
around the globe. Yeah,
if you live in America, you're part of the 1%.
Absolutely. We currently enjoy better access to goods and services, medical care, education. These things would make the King of England 200 years ago jealous, you know what I mean? And it's only because we've advanced to the point where we become so advanced materially that we even have time to sit around and discuss these ideas of socialism, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, like Karl Marx was a fantastic fiction writer, you know what I mean? But so is C.S. Lewis, right? And we're not trying to remake American society in the image of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I mean, the things that Marx predicted have never come to pass. Every time you've had a socialist system be put into place, it's been at the barrel of a gun. And that's a point that I do a lot of public speaking. I go out to a lot of American universities and colleges and speak to students about these ideas. And the point that I'll always make to them is, socialism inherently, when you think about socialism, you have to think of force. Government is stepping in and trying to make decisions on your best behalf because they think that they can decide better than you can, whether it's how to spend your money, what choices to make in the private marketplace. And that entire dynamic stands opposed to many of our American ideals.
Yeah, that's for sure. One of the things I think is very interesting about, you point out that Marx was a lousy historian and a lousy predictor, because he predicted that socialism and communism were a more advanced economy and that it would be very natural. In other words, that the most advanced economies which he thought at the time would be like Great Britain and maybe America and others, would be the first countries to become socialist. And in fact, like you said, it's happened in the most backward countries, the countries that were not very well advanced. They were basically third world countries in terms of their economic power at the time. And it's been done at the end of a gun, not because there was this anyhow, it's just very interesting. You got everything wrong.
Well, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at Marx. I'm trying to remember from college, because, of course, I was forced to read Marx like most other American college students in the last 20 years. I'm reading Marx, right? And I remember Marx's theory of, labor theory of capital, where Marx has this entire section of this painfully written section of this book where he's saying, the value of a shoe will be equal to the amount of time it took the shoemaker to make the shoe. And I'm going like, that's not true. The value of a shoe is how much people are willing to pay for it, right? I mean, when you go into Target and you're picking up, I don't know, like a bath towel or something, are you looking for a tag on it that says how many hours it took to produce the bath towel? No. We're talking about, basic principles of competition, the way that price levels function in a market economy. That's reality, right? And Marx, for better or worse, really bases most of his philosophy on the way he would like things to be, and not the way they actually are.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. But not much of a historian, not much of an economist, and not much of a scientist. He was just dead wrong on everything. One of the things and we've only got a little bit of time left in this segment, but I am glad you're sticking around for the next segment, because that'll be, I think, just great. But there's lots more to discuss here. But let's talk a little bit about some of the costs, if you can, and just say a minute or less, of being socialist, just because they always act like it's better. So,
Sure. Well, I mean, when you look at the United States, this is something I talk about often. You look at certain ideas, right? The United States really was revolutionary, not only in our actual political aspirations in breaking off from Great Britain, but in terms of the first revolution based purely upon ideas about individual rights and the dignity of the individual, constitutionally limited government, the rule of law. All of these things, these are our heritage as Americans. And these things, again, stand in direct opposition to ideas of socialism, which is individuals don't have rights, groups have rights. Property rights is something that can be just taken or granted at will by the government, depending upon arbitrary political distinctions. There should be no limitations on government. I mean, I always find it to be interesting. Every time the Democrats run into some kind of hiccup in their proposals or they lose an election, all of a sudden they're calling for the full-scale reformation of the U.S. Senate. They want to get rid of the Electoral College. They want to pack the U.S. Supreme Court. And I think that really just goes to the heart of what the relationship is between their principles and the American Republic.
Yep. Well, that's a good place for us to take a break here. We'll come back after the break with Timothy Snowball and continue this conversation. You're listening to Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith with Rick Trader, and we are coming to you on the Conservative Commandos radio network, which is broadcast all across this great nation. And we're also coming to you on the AUN TV network. And, of course, if you're not near a broadcast tower of either radio or television variety, you can always catch us on Al Gore's amazing internet. Don't go away. We will be right back.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Hartman, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect. How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud, the claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
Saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
People die and they fall for the right time. So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. My co-host today is George Landrith. George is the president and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom, and I am Rick Trader. For rebroadcasts of our shows, best place is to go to our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You'll find our radio broadcast, our TV broadcast, a lot of great articles, and a lot of great terrific information. Don't look for us on Facebook. We have been permanently banned by Facebook. I don't know, Tim. Maybe someday we should have a free speech conversation here. But our guest is Tim Snowball. He's an attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation's Sacramento office, and we're discussing an article Tim wrote that's published on thehill.com. Socialism is neither fair nor progressive political philosophy. Tim, thank you for holding through that break. We really do appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure.
Tim, before we pick up the conversation, I have to chastise my co-host, George Landrith, for saying that AOC is an empty-headed idiot. George, one thing that she did learn by getting that economics degree at Boston College or Boston University is how to make a mean margarita. She learned that.
There you go.
She learned.
So her head's not entirely empty. I apologize.
No.
I take it all back.
You know, Tim, I have this expression in front of me here, or it's a saying by Ronald Reagan: freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You know, I will bump this up by saying that we are only one election. We're only one election away from losing our freedoms. That if Democrats get control of the Senate, maintain control of the House, elect a president, we are in, when you listen to the promises that the 20-some-odd Democrat candidates are making, they seem to be in lockstep with one another. We're in deep trouble. Would you... Tim Snowball, am I being too far outside the box on this?
Well, maybe Maybe just a tad, right? I mean, I consider myself to be a bit of an optimist for a few different reasons, on that front. First, I have immense faith in the American people, right? And the American people, by and large, when you look at the polling numbers, reject socialism. You know what I mean? People aren't buying it. Basic common sense would dictate, if you're somebody who even regularly balances a checkbook, you can understand why this system would not work and why, the proposals the Democrats are fielding are failed proposals. So there's that. Of course, also, I was trained as a political scientist, right? In college, I'm a constitutional litigator now. I'm practicing law, but in college I took political science. And for all the noise and the media and the talking heads and the back and forth and this and that, political scientists, for the most part, would say, usually in incumbent elections, it's generally pretty easy. You can look at 2 or 3 different variables and try to get a handle on whether or not someone's going to be reelected. And when it comes to those 3 variables, President Trump scores very highly. They say, first, you should look at the economy. How's the economy doing? We're right now probably arguably in the largest expansion, economically speaking, since World War II. That bodes well for an incumbent. Just being an incumbent bodes well for the president. People are less likely to want to change the status quo when someone's already been in office, for better or worse. And third, of course, is just basic party ID, that people who are generally voting a certain way are going to come out and vote that way again. And so, I'm loath to predict with too much certainty what's going to happen in 2020, just because 2016 was such an upset. But, from my perspective, I think things are probably better off than we would say. But that's not to detract at all from your point in terms of President Reagan's quote. I always go out and like I mentioned before, speak to college students, do public speaking events, and either present things either online through print media or other things. And the point that I'll always make to people is the fight for the future of the American Republic is now. And if not you and I, then who? And, not everyone's going to be able to devote massive amounts of time or resources to this fight. They're raising families, they're putting food on the table. But I'm convinced that there's something that each one of us can be doing every day to wage this battle of ideas. And whether that's talking to your kids, over breakfast, whether it's talking to your neighbors, whether it's talking to church friends, whether it's volunteering in the community, there's something very special about the United States that is under threat. But I'm certainly not ready to throw the towel in yet.
Well, Tim, thank you for walking me off the ledge on that one. But you mentioned in the first section of the interview with George about the Morton Freeman interview with Bill Donahue, and I've watched that, and we've posted that many times here on Conservative Commandos. You also mentioned that you go out and you speak to college students on campus and things. When I watched that Freeman interview, it was amazing how he was able to grip the students and the audience that was there. When you go to college campuses today, will these kids listen to you and give you the time and respect?
I think it depends in great part upon the political culture. I've only had a couple of instances where I've had someone kind of actively try to interrupt me, you know what I mean? But usually people are very respectful and will listen to the ideas even if they don't necessarily agree with them. The thing I find to be the most interesting, though, is I've had students approach me after these presentations and say, I don't get it. This is the first time that I'm hearing these arguments and these ideas. How can I have gone through X number of years, either high school or even people who are getting along in college, how can I have gone through all of these classes on American history or American government or anything else and not have heard these ideas? I don't get it. And that's definitely something that's interesting to me. I had some very important teachers in my education that really sparked an interest in me to pursue not only this line of work, but more of this calling, And so I always find that to be questionable and unfortunate. I don't know exactly how you fix that. Most studies nowadays say if you want to become a permanent faculty member on a faculty of higher education, you actually have to fudge your resume and appear to be more liberal than you are, or else you just won't even get your foot in the door. You won't be able to even get an interview. And so even if we had the goal to openly diversify higher education, I don't know how you do that if the hiring committees are so expressly biased.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is Timothy Snowball. He's a lawyer at the Pacific Legal Foundation, and we're discussing his article, Socialism is Neither a Fair Nor Progressive Political Philosophy. Tim, great article, by the way. It was really,
Thank you.
In fact, I mentioned to George last week, I wanted to get you on the show. In your article, you mentioned, you have a list here, if you will. Maybe in talking about socialism, maybe a better approach would be to start with what socialism is not. Now, you and George talked about a couple of these things, that socialism is not new and that socialism is not working in Europe. But how about socialism is not more fair or just?
I think absolutely, it's a fantastic point. I mean, you look back at American history and you've got just generations and generations of Americans, or excuse me, of immigrants coming here and trying to become Americans, looking for a better life for themselves and for their families, right? Based upon the idea that here in the United States, there is freedom and opportunity like nothing else in the rest of the world. And I think that people are still seeking to come to our shores for these very ideas. And so when I look at individuals all the way from someone who may have come here and gotten a job, or even someone, found a business, be an entrepreneur, I look at these people as trailblazers, right? And so when you look at a Bill Gates or a Mark Zuckerberg or anybody else who's been very successful in our free market economy, I mean, I want to see more millionaires walking around the streets, right? People get these, on the left talking resentments toward millionaires. I want there to be more millionaires because that signals to me that they have provided a value in our society through voluntary exchange. And I mean, you look at Facebook, you look at the Windows program, think about how many trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars have been added to the economy. The compensation that Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg have received has probably barely scratched the surface of how much value they've actually added.
Tim, I guess you also talked a little bit about that when you say socialism is not superior to capitalism. Also, socialism is not better for the individual.
Well, certainly not. Certainly not. I mean, I think that one of the main things you'll have come up with people, young people especially, who are espousing this socialist creed, is that they've become kind of obsessed with this idea of equality. And we're not talking, again, about equality of opportunity or equality before the law. Those are concepts that are at the very, core of what it means to be an American. They're more obsessed with this idea of the equality of outcome, right? The idea that the economy represents a fixed pie, and if one person benefits, they must necessarily be benefiting at the expense of someone else. Of course, we all know that that's not how it works. You know what I mean? You come up with a new invention, you open a new business, you are creating new wealth. That wealth didn't exist before you created that business or that new product, right? And that's the entire purpose is, you're not necessarily benefiting at the expense of anyone in our economy. Through competition, you can pave your own way.
All right. Timothy Snowball, Pacific Legal Foundation, we want to thank you so much for coming here on Conservative Commandos. Tim, please tell our audience how they could follow you, read your articles, and also find out more about the Pacific Legal Foundation.
Absolutely. So it's kind of fun. If you want to read this article, I tested this earlier. If you just punch into Google Snowball and socialism, the article pops up. So I guess I've got that going for me. But the firm is available at pacificlegal.org. We're on all the social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's @T_Snowball_ESQ. And we're always producing new content on all of our cases. The organization exists purely to come to the aid of Americans who are being unfairly targeted by our government and to enforce the Bill of Rights. So I encourage everyone who's interested to please go on and check us out.
All right, Tim, again, thank you so much. Take care and God bless.
Okay, thank you.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landrith and yours truly, Rick Trader. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Seton Motley. He's the president of Less Government. And Tim has written an article about government schools. Intentionally, we don't understand math or English. Don't go away. I thought that's what schools were supposed to teach. Maybe not. We will be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landrith and yours truly, Rick Trader. George is the president of Frontiers of Freedom. And if you'd like to find out more about that, Frontiers of Freedom, just go to their website, www.ff.org. George, we do have our next guest with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Sounds good. Well, Seton Motley is our guest, and he's a friend of the show. He's a friend of conservatives everywhere. And I'm glad to say he's a friend of mine as well. He's the president of Less Government. That is an organization that is dedicated. Now, in Washington, they're used to double talk, but Seton's not. So it's actually dedicated, believe it or not, to, of all things, less government. So Seton is obviously a believer in candor and truth in advertising. At any rate, he does a lot of work on a variety of topics, including the First Amendment, things like just keeping government in its proper constitutional limited role, which suggests less of it. Anyhow, he's a radio commentator, a television commentator, a writer. He's a political strategist, a lecture debater, and an activist. So with that, Seton, welcome back to the Conservative Commando radio show and television show. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
It's great to have you with you. Now, have you with us. There we go. Get my pronouns right. So, you've written an interesting article. It has kind of two segments to it. Part of it's on government schools. I think it's important to call them government schools. Sometimes people refer to them as public schools. And it seems to me that one of the things I've always said is, if you go to a Catholic school, you'd expect to have an element of that be pro-Catholic education. If you go to a Baptist school, the same thing. If you go to a, whatever it is, school. If you go to a government school, you're going to get a pro-government education. And
that's the old line from Neil Bortz, the radio talk show host and lawyer. That's how he describes it. Yes.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we get. Is we have educated a couple generations now of people who have this blind trust and faith in government, as if it can do no harm. So I thought I'd just talk to us about this problem and where it's failing us.
Well, we're into 3 generations now of increasing government control and role in the school and warping from education to indoctrination. And you're seeing that reflected now in the voter rolls, and it's one of the main contributing factors to the country moving so far leftward as it has. Immigration is another key component of that, but the softness on immigration comes from government schools. Look, it's the root of all evil. I could fix one thing in this country just by flipping a switch. It would be to end the government's role in education. Certainly, starting with the federal government. But it's just you can't. It's like it's like you got ticks biting you all over the place. You keep treating the Lyme disease and you keep treating the other diseases that result from it, but you're still injecting poison into the system. And as long as government schools are doing what they're doing, no matter what you do, we sit here and fight afterwards. We're fighting in D.C. for better policy, and we're fighting, in state capitals for better policy. But the government schools continue to inject poison into the system year after year after year, and you can't. We're treating symptoms. We're not treating the root cause, and the government schools the root cause.
Right. I thought you quote George Carlin, the comedian, and I thought, for a guy who's made a living making jokes, he actually hit pretty close to home on the truth here when he talks about it's not in the government's interest to create, people who are intelligent, capable of critical thinking. What they want is these obedient workers, people who are smart enough to run the machines or do the job and fill out the paperwork, but just dumb enough to accept this government ramming things down their throat sideways. And
well, remember, you can't be a comedian and be funny without being truthful.
That's true. There has to be an element of truth to what you say, or it's not funny.
It's not funny.
Which is why late night television's no longer funny.
Exactly. All the late night hosts. I mean, as Aaron Sorkin wrote in West Wing, they forget to bring the funny. And you see Jerry Seinfeld and Chris Rock and the older generation of comedians now talking about, I don't go to college campuses anymore because you can't be funny. You can't do jokes anymore.
It's a truth-free zone.
Yes. So, again, Carlin was a brilliant comedian. There's a guy from Australia named Steve Hughes who I would almost put in his category that no one's ever heard of here. I'm not sure he's even toured in America, but he's at that level of deep analytical humor. He does it in the context of humor. But he was talking about 10, 12 years ago, he was talking about, Europe wants to make xenophobia and racism illegal. And the crowd sort of cheers. He goes, no, that's not a good idea. It's an insidious trick. And, of course, I'm editing curse words. He said, George Orwell is playing with himself in his grave. He's like, this is thought crime. He said, George Orwell saying to us, I told you, didn't I? I got the year wrong, but I told you. That's, you can't, he talks about, he goes, what they want to do is they want to smash borders and then import, mass import from the third world. And then if you complain, you get arrested for xenophobia and racism. And he said, you get people in Europe saying, well, I'm not racist, but 10,000 people have shown up here since last Wednesday, and most of them can't understand the escalator. It's that kind of humor that you can't do anymore. You can't do immigration humor. You have Ted Turner, who owns the Warner Brothers oeuvre of cartoons. He won't show Speedy Gonzales in America. But guess what the number one cartoon right now in Mexico is? Speedy Gonzales. From 70 years ago, or whatever it was, whenever it was originally made. They love it down there. It's not outlawed down there, and they love it. So it's just you can't. I didn't mean to get sidetracked into comedy, but you can't do comedy without truth if you want to be funny and actually impactful in what you say.
That's definitely truth. Let's look at what he had to say about. I mean, George Carlin being the comedian, which was was our launch point. But the reality is, government. It's not well suited for people to leave with from a government school with a degree understanding the Constitution, understanding that government was to be limited, understanding that our founders were afraid of big government, that they were concerned about it, that their whole endeavor in creating that Constitution was to put checks and balances so that the tyranny of the majority didn't happen. And yet, we blindly hope that the schools
we set up a constitutional republic with a limited government, and then we hand over the education of our children to government. Well, that doesn't make any sense. That makes zero sense because it's like trying to have a Sharia-free country and then handing over all our education to Sharia madrasas. It's antithetical to the system you purported to set up. You can't do it. You're limiting the government, and then you're handing generation after generation of children to the entity you wanted to limit. You can't say I want less Catholics and then have your schools be all Catholic. It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. Seton, we're getting close to break here, so rather than give you a question and then have to cut you off because
we'll go sell items. Yes.
Yeah. We'll pay for the show and come back after the break and ask you questions. But as always, Seton, you are interesting, entertaining, and insightful. And but I just want to remind our listeners, you're listening to Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith with Frontiers of Freedom, and of course my co-host is the original Conservative Commando, Rick Trader. And we are coming to the Conservative Commandos radio network, which is broadcast all across this great nation from sea to shining sea, and also now on the AUN TV network as well. Sadly for you, you have to look at my face. It was bad enough you had to listen to me, now you have to look. And of course we are carried all around the entire world, with the possible exception of China and North Korea and Iran, on Al Gore's amazing internet. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landrith and yours truly, Rick Trader. Rebroadcast can be heard on our website, CCRShow.com. That's CCRShow.com. You could also see rebroadcast of our shows there, as well as pick up a lot of great information and read a lot of great articles. Cannot be seen or heard on Facebook since we are still permanently banned. Our guest this segment is Seton Motley. We love Seton. We love his knowledge. We love him being with us, but we love less government. Seton, thank you for holding through that break.
I didn't know about your Facebook ban. I'm sorry. I was just on a panel last week about the big tech censorship. I'm sorry. I didn't know you guys were there. I feel terrible.
I don't know if you knew this or not, but conservatism violates Facebook's community standards because we're broadcast on television and radio broadcast towers, which is regulated by the FCC.
Right.
But evidently so it's not like we're using potty language or showing nasty pictures.
I was the last panelist to speak on 3 panels of a basically half-day event, and what I said because I was on a panel on the Hill in Capitol Hill about 6 months ago or so, put on by one of the Big Tech's many lobbying groups. It was the Internet Association, they have several. And, it's Google and Facebook and Netflix and Amazon and all these big, giant companies. And the premise was, alleged bias against conservatism. And I said at the end of this panel last week, I said, look, one thing we have to do is, this is not a subject for debate anymore. We can't pretend that, are we imagining this? Are we pretend, are we not sure yet that they're censoring conservatives? No, I said, and anytime someone tries to contest that fact, you just make fun of them. You laugh at them and say you're ridiculous. If you're contesting conservatives are being shoved off of these platforms, you're a joke and you're an unserious person. Because one, Saul Alinsky was on the wrong side of the ideological spectrum, but he was right on human nature. Ridicule is a very effective thing. And two, it's just absurd on its face to in 2019 to pretend it's not happening. It's just ridiculous.
Well, Seton, what George is referring to is that if you try to post anything about our website or linking to our website with the extension of CCRShow.com, Facebook will not post it, and you will get a message that says this site violates our community standards.
Did they give you an example of? Did they give you a specific post or whatever?
No, they just refused. And so they do give you an option to appeal, to ask for a review. And this has been going on for about 10, 15 days now. Every day I try to put something linking to our website on, and each time they say this violates our community standards, and then you can say ask for a review. They refused to review any of it, so it's kind of frustrating,
Well, and one of my suggestions last week was, I was on a panel with a guy named Todd Seferati, who I've known for several years. And he spent millions of dollars building up a multi-million person Facebook network. Mm-hmm. And then Facebook just totally eradicated him. And I said, there should be a class action lawsuit of everybody that spent money on building, Facebook followers who then get dumped by Facebook and say, we want our money back. We want our money. We want all the money we spent on your platform, building our brand on your platform, if you're going to summarily pull us from the platform after the fact. That's a bait and switch. It's a complete rip-off. And I would love to see, because Herman Cain was on the panel, and he had 20 million followers or something ridiculous, and they just non-personed him. Oh, and by the way, this is the thing that's going to happen now. They're not going to, now that they're getting called on it, they're not going to publicly say, you're violating our community standards, and we're not going to, we're deplatforming you. They're going to shadow ban you. They're just going to algorithm you out of the equation. Right. So that way they're not publicly saying, hey, you're out of here. They're just going to make you a non-entity. I see it on mine. I'll post something political, and it'll get 20, 25, 50 likes. I'll post a picture of my dog, and I get 300, 400 likes.
Hey, Seton, during these panels that you were on, was there any sort of discussion about boycotting Facebook advertisers? Because if I was a Facebook advertiser and I was paying to be on Facebook, and then Facebook is banning and shadow banning a lot of people's thoughts, and
people with money,
making a lot of people angry. And when I say making a lot of people angry, well, I'll talk about my Facebook friends. So if you have an advertiser that's spending a lot of money to advertise, and then Facebook
unfortunately,
is cutting off a lot of people.
I sat on my panel right next to Laura Loomer, who's been banned from everything. MasterCard has banned her. PayPal has banned her. Wow. There are a lot of companies now that, there was a great line from Michael Jordan 30 years ago during the height of his NBA career, where he's always been a lifelong Democrat, and he was getting yelled at by black leaders for not being more vocal at the height of his power, when he was the best player on the planet. And he said, Republicans buy sneakers too. And that theory seems to be a much less popular notion amongst business leaders. MasterCard, you would think, is in the money processing business, and they wouldn't care who's doing the money processing. They would, they would be hired out to do it. They're blocking people now. PayPal is blocking people now based on ideological reasons. They'll take the monetary hit in order to make the ideological statement, and that's why I think boycotts on our part are even less effective. They don't care. They seem to be perfectly happy to only sell to leftists, which is ironic because they don't have any money. But that's a separate issue. Yeah. It's like when the left says they want a civil war. I'm like, we're the ones with all the guns. What are you talking about?
Seton Motley, I know another issue, and this kind of like dovetails into this conversation about the internet. You are very up on net neutrality. You've also have written about a ton of tech companies have just come out against net neutrality. Net neutrality being one of those darling issues of the left and Democrats. What's the latest on net neutrality?
Yeah, I wrote this article about government schools because people can't do math or know basic definitions of English words anymore, and it's because of government schools. My joke is they graduate from high school, they can't read the diploma they're handed, but they can roll a condom on a banana. And these idiots, I saw it again over the weekend, which was the impetus for this whole piece, which was, they say, big corporations, the anti-net neutrality Republicans with the backing of huge corporations. Well, again, the huge corporations to which they refer are, the internet service providers, Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, and then some other companies like Qualcomm and Cisco, the people who are our serious computer component people who know how stupid net neutrality is. Well, all you need to do is look at their market caps. What are they worth? Comcast is worth, I think, I didn't look up Comcast, so I'm pulling this out of my butt, but it's about $150 billion. Qualcomm's worth about $40-50 billion. The companies that want net neutrality are Google, which is a $900 billion company, Amazon, which is a $900 billion company, Apple, which is a $900 billion company, Facebook, which is a $550 billion company. Any one of these companies could buy every ISP in the country and have money left over. And I'm just so tired of, huge corporations back net neutrality. Well, I don't know what the word is that's exponentially larger than huge, but the exponentially larger than huge corporations want net neutrality. So, it's just, I'm so tired. They can't do math. They can't look at a $900 billion company and a $50 billion company and realize that the $900 billion company is bigger than the $50 billion company. And the $900 billion company wants net neutrality, and the $50 billion company does not, but we get headlines like 60 huge corporations, oppose net neutrality. It's so frustratingly stupid that literally one article inspired the whole piece because of just how dumb it was.
Yeah, well, there you go. Seton Motley, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Always enjoy the time that you can spend with us. Seton, please tell our audience how they could follow your work and read what you write.
Yeah, you can go to, I'll tell you what, you can go to lessgovernment.org. You just sign up for our newsletter. The only time you get emails is when we write something. Unlike Google and Facebook, we will not sell your data. Or lease, that's the thing. We don't sell your data. No, you lease access to it. Okay, let's just, fine. I'm sorry, our fault. Or you can go to Twitter and go to @SetonMotley until I think I'm already shadow banned. But anyway,
all right.
That's it.
All right, Seton Motley, again, thank you for joining us. Take care and God bless.
God bless. Thank you very much, guys.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landrith and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with the coach, Dave Daubenmire, and we're going to be talking about the party of death. Don't go away. We will be right back.
I saw voter fraud with my own eyes. Now, people say, why didn't you report it to the authorities? Well, they were the ones doing it.
The integrity of one man, one vote doesn't apply at the Texas state legislature. There is no way to know if your representatives are voting for themselves.
Department, a Republican, reaches back to vote for Democrat Oliveira. Democrat Matt Reynolds votes for Republican England.
2 out of 3 voters nationwide believe that voter fraud is a serious problem in the U.S. today.
The process is rigged.
Both sides of the aisle are guilty.
Florida now has to tell the Department of Justice whether the state will comply with DOJ's demand to stop purging thousands of people from its voter rolls.
We have the sloppiest election system of any industrialized democracy.
Philadelphia flagged 50,000 duplicate registrations, so just think how many more slipped through.
It's almost impossible to detect.
How do you get caught? You only get caught if you confess.
Election corruption is deeply embedded in America. Quote, election fraud is a crime that usually pays, unquote, writes Tracy Campbell in his book, Deliver the Vote, A History of Election Fraud, an American political tradition from 1742 to 2004. In 1742, the first Prime Minister of Britain in the American colonies, Robert Walpole, was forced to resign.
We have a right not to have our vote canceled out by someone who shouldn't be voting, someone who's an illegal alien, someone who's a felon not eligible to vote, someone who doesn't exist. If they vote, they cancel your vote out as much as if you're prevented from voting.
If this is going to be fixed, it's going to have to be a citizen effort. It comes down to, it's the same old question, if not now, when? If not us, then who?
This is huge. This is about the democracy and the principles of the United States of America. People say, but why you? Why you? Why? Well, why not? And if it starts with a fireman, if it starts with a sanitation worker, if it starts with a teacher or a nurse or a caretaker of the elderly, then so be it. It's got to start somewhere. But it's time we come together and fix this problem once and for all.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
Serious allegations of voter fraud. The claims raising questions about the
Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 32 others were on a military plane that crashed today in a violent storm. There are no known survivors at this time.
The U.S. Army was funded by the evil entity.
Saw voter fraud with my own eyes.
To say that it doesn't exist is an outright lie.
The process is rigged.
So it's incredibly important now that we draw a line and say, not on our watch.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. Once again, we want to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on radio stations in Jacksonville, Tampa, the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and also now in Arlington, Virginia, and Washington, D.C., in addition to being broadcast on the AUN television network in places like San Francisco and Sacramento. And George, our next guest is with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Absolutely. We have Dave Daubenmire. He is a high school coach. He has 35 years experience. And he was spurred to action when he was attacked and sued by the ACLU for apparently having the temerity to pray and perhaps even allow his players to pray when he was coaching. I'm sure the ACLU's view was that Coach Dave's job was to make sure no one ever prayed. And that if someone silently started to pray, it was his job to make them run extra laps after practice for having done such an awful thing. But he wouldn't back down, and he wouldn't say no to this. And finally, they were willing to settle. But as a result of that, he moved out of coaching and got involved in some other things, working to promote his faith and the things that he believes in and trying to advance the cause of God. And he's involved with Pass the Salt Ministries. And he's also in his life made an attempt or a run at the U.S. Congress from Ohio as well. So with that, Coach Dave Daubenmire, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show and television program as well.
Well, George and Rick, it's an honor to be on with you. That was 1997. Seems like yesterday, but that was. Think about that. When I got sued by the ACLU, that was 22 years ago. Where does life go, you know? And I tried to even tell people back then that this was, the British are coming, you know, fellas, the British are coming. I told them back in 1997 that this is just the beginning of this anti-Christ wave that was sweeping across the nation. And of course, even back then, the churches weren't really this willing to stand and fight. I went through that battle, 2-year battle with the ACLU for my God-given right to be able to pray, and did not lose my job. I went undefeated my last year there. My wife and I, we walked away and we started Pass the Salt Ministries, and I've spent the last 20-some years just trying to wake up Christians to what's going on in our need to fight back against the forces of darkness.
Absolutely. I appreciate you being willing to engage in that, because one of the problems we have is that too many people seem to be bullied into silence, and it's important that we stand up. I think there's more that are with us, but too many are afraid to speak up.
Well, I wrote last week, and I'd make a commentary every week on my website, and I wrote last week that talked about force. You know, fellas, it says in the scriptures that from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of God has suffered violence, and violent men take it by force. And if you stop and think about where we are in America today, the left has used force. Every moral issue that we're dealing with in America has not been a vote of the people. They have crammed it down our throat. And it's really unique that when we try to stand up and fight back, they accuse us of violence. Isn't that something? They force it down our throat. If we push back against it, they call it violence. And and all the travels and everything that I do, boy, it's hard to find Christian men who will stand up and fight because some reason they've been taught that to push back and stand up for what you believe is not very Christ-like. And I happen to have another version of the gospel than that one.
Absolutely. Well, I'm from Virginia, and in our state, just a few months ago, the governor of our state, Ralph Northam, made the news ever so briefly, because about the same time he was also spotted in a yearbook with blackface. That was a much bigger story, and as based on the number of articles written. But I thought it was a pretty amazing thing. So this is a doctor. He's a pediatrician turned politician. So it's not like he didn't know what he was talking about. But he talked about and defended the idea that you could give birth to a baby, set it on a table, make it comfortable, and then after consulting with parents about whether they want it or not, decide whether you would kill it or not.
Here in Ohio, George, we would call that infanticide. I don't know what to call it down there where you guys live, but that's exactly what we would call it.
Under the current law in Virginia, that would also be infanticide, but the governor was advocating for something, for change to our law. And I would point out that there's a fellow named Hermit Gazanel who's in jail for doing the exact same thing that the governor was talking about making legal.
Right. And of course, you can never make legal what God calls unlawful, right? You can never legalize murder. Now, the amazing thing in this pro-life fight, which I've been in for a long time, is it's nothing but lies. The left, it's nothing but lies, right? My body, my choice. The baby's not really a baby. It's a blob of tissue. We are still fighting. It's amazing to me that we're still fighting 45 years later on 45-year-old science. Now, we all know with all the new ultrasounds and all the new scientific techniques that they have, we know when life begins, don't we? We know it begins at the moment of conception, yet we are still fighting that same fight that somehow that baby is not alive, somehow that baby is part of the mother's body. It is all lies, and unfortunately, most of us who are on the right side of things, we don't understand the debate. We don't understand the argument. And because we're not really good at fighting back and pushing it back against those lies for 45 years have carried the day. But it's a new day. We see these heartbeat bills are going all across America. We passed one here in Ohio, which was really the first one. And man, oh man, I believe the church is finally waking up. And I'm one of those crazy guys. I think we're going to see the end of abortion in the not very near future.
It's an interesting issue because the average American, if you were to poll them, their position is much closer to the pro-life position than it is to this. I mean, if the Democratic Party, because it's not just the state of Virginia, New York passed a bill similar to that. They lit up the tower, the New York, the Empire State Building, to celebrate. So bottom line is, this is not a the other side is actually openly,
George, they lied to us, right?
Yeah, but they are openly supporting killing babies after they're born. It's no longer this question of my body, my choice, infant isn't a baby. It's like, wait a minute, you told us all along that as soon as the baby was born, you would agree that it had a right to live. And now you don't even do that. I mean, that's how extreme they've gotten. I'm not advocating their position at all. I'm just saying that's what complete whack jobs they are.
How about safe, legal, and rare? Wasn't that what Bill Clinton said at one point? And now it's even after they're born. But see, they're going to get away with this malarkey as long as Christians remain quiet about it. If we don't stand up and begin to push back, I think, from my standpoint, Governor Ralph down there, he overstepped. There's no doubt that he overstepped. And then what they did in New York, they overstepped. And I think that was the final straw. As you said, George, we had believed the lies, right? We had believed the lies. See, most people are pro-life, except we've bought into this dastardly lie that who am I to judge? Who am I to tell somebody else what they can do with their body? I would never have an abortion, but who am I to tell somebody else what they can do with their body? That has been the lie, and that's the lie that most people on the right have accepted. Say, well, we don't want the government telling us what to do. We conservatives, we don't want the government getting into our personal lives, but of course not. But the government makes laws and rules all the time, right? And so we know murder is against the law. The question is, who said murdering a baby is okay? That's the debate, and that's the battle that we have to win.
Hey, George and Coach, could I just jump in for a minute? Coach, you were talking about this lie. The lie being, well, I wouldn't have an abortion, but I can't tell you not to. I want to say to these people, well, could they also say, well, I don't believe in murder, but if you want to go ahead and shoot someone, stab someone, beat them on the head with a baseball bat, go ahead and do it. Or I don't necessarily believe in bank robbery, but you go ahead. All you want. Take as much as you want.
How about this one, Rick? I would say, well, I would never hang a black man, but who am I to tell you can't? Or I would never push a homosexual off of a roof, but who am I to tell someone that they can't? It's craziness, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Sorry, George. It just
no.
Sometimes I have to interfere.
That was an excellent interruption. I'm glad you did. I think what the point you're making ultimately is, on every other issue where there's a really profound harm that can be done to somebody for bad reasons, like Coach Dave was saying, we wouldn't say those things because it's a lousy argument. It's just not real. But anyhow, we are up against the break. We're going to come back after the break with more with Coach Dave. But I do want to remind you, you're listening to Conservative Commandos. You're watching the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landrith with Rick Trader, and we're coming to you on the Conservative Commandos radio network, which is broadcast from sea to shining sea. And we're coming to you on the AUN TV network as well. And of course, we are also carried on Al Gore's amazing internet. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America, and get this. Did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The secret war is yours, free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is George Landrith. George is the president and CEO of Frontiers of Freedom. You can find out more about Frontiers of Freedom by going to their website, ff.org. One of the best website addresses I ever heard of. Short and sweet, and you can never forget it. ff.org. Our guest is Dave Daubenmire. He's a former football coach. He was coaching young people for 35 years, and he also had a successful suit against the ACLU. Coach Dave, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Oh, Rick, it's an honor to be on with you guys. Thanks.
Dave, you did something I say all the time that we Christians, we conservatives do. We need to fight back more. You fought back against the ACLU. Your article, The Party of Death. And Coach Dave, would you agree with me by saying it is time for Christians to start fighting back for the rights, for Christians to start fighting back for the truth about abortion, about euthanasia, about many other of these liberal things? You know, you have in your bio, you're not a Republican. You know, you're not a Republican. You don't belong to the Republican Party. But it just seems to me that you are a Christian man, and what you're talking about makes a whole lot of sense. But, you know, this idea I have, should we be more militant? We conservatives, we Christians, when we're pushed into a corner with abortion, with euthanasia, with the homosexual agenda.
Well, I'm a Christocrat. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm a Christocrat. I vote my conscience, and yes, it should be more militant. But see, again, the left has done such a wonderful job of taking the language and turning against this. If we think about even the Second Amendment, right? What's the Second Amendment of the Constitution say? A well-regulated militia. That's a bad word now, isn't it? Rick, that's a bad word. You don't say that word anymore. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But they've taken the word militia and they've turned that into something bad. And they've done that with many of the words. They've changed the entire language on us. And like little sheeple, we come along. I said to somebody the other day, you call homosexuals gay. Now, whose idea was that? And when did you start identifying homosexuals as gay? Well, it's the way they program us, and we find ourselves using the language of the left. And in the long run, it really, really disarms us because we don't. Words mean things, and we haven't quite figured that out yet.
You're absolutely right, Dave. In fact, my wife says all the time, verbal engineering precedes social engineering, and I think this is exactly what we are seeing here. The left is very good at verbal manipulation of the language and speech.
Change the words, change the world. That's what I've been saying that for 20 years. Change the words, and you change the world.
Mm-hmm. Coach Dave, in your article, and by the way, the article that we're referring to is the Party of Death. The Party of Death. You know, you and George were talking about abortion. You were also talking, we could also talk about euthanasia, but you also talk about homosexuality is a death style. Simply check the statistics. Coach Dave, what are those statistics?
Well, the average homosexual, according to statistics that are probably about 15 years old now. You know, they don't like to do a lot of statistics on the homosexual movement because it's such a politically hot topic. But the average male homosexual only lives to be about 46 years old. So homosexuality cuts about 30 years off of your life. And the genesis of my article was scripture that says, all those who hate me love death. And the point that I was making, we know that the Democratic Party has thrown God out of their platform. We know that they did that about 4 or 5 years ago. And we know that recently they took, so help me God, out of the swearing in ceremony in the House of Representatives. That is controlled by the Party of Death. So I say you look at abortion, you look at drugs, you look at, they want to give needles to people who use drugs, right? They want to support that. We tell our kids at school, don't smoke cigarettes, but try sodomy. Sodomy be really good for you. Don't smoke cigarettes, they'll kill you. But that's sodomy. That'd be really, really great. And see, on the left, it's because they have I believe, such a hatred for Christ that they do everything they can to oppose God. Now, I want to say this real quick, clear, Rick. Those of you who call yourself Christians and are still voting Democratic, you better open your eyes up and look around at what's going on. As you said earlier, I'm not a Republican. I vote Republican probably, but I'm not a Republican. I see the holes in that mess as well. But if anybody can go in and pull the lever for a Democrat, I believe that's a sin.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, our guest is Coach Dave Daubenmire. Coach, you're a very interesting man. In fact, after I contacted you about coming on, or actually when I contacted you, I went to your website, and you are involved in something called the Equal Justice Tour. Tell us about that.
Oh, thanks for the time. We're really excited about that. About 3 weeks ago, I jumped in my car, and I live outside of Columbus, Ohio, and I drove 8 hours to Chappaqua, New York, where Hillary Clinton lives.
That's committed. That's being committed.
Well, I'm scared. As one of my friends said, you can't stop the butterflies. You just need to make them fly in formation. And I went up there, and I publicly said it's time to indict Hillary Clinton. Well, when I got home, drove back 8 hours and home all by myself, I was a little nervous. You know, people who challenge the Clintons have a way of disappearing, Rick. Well, I got home and some other guys picked it up, and we are going back. We're calling it the Equal Justice Tour. We're going back to Chappaqua, New York this Sunday. We're going to be there at 2:00. We're going to do a drive-through and a public, I don't want to use the term protest, but we're going to try to bring awareness that Hillary Clinton needs to be indicted. Now, if people would go to that website, equaljusticetour.com, you'll find the 4 things that James Comey already said, felonies she already committed. But he said that nobody sane prosecutor would prosecute or something like that. But, brother, those are crimes that she already committed. So we are going and we're taking the first shot. We call it an equal justice tour because we're beginning in Chappaqua, but at 15 Old House Lane, Hillary's house. We're beginning there, but we're going to raise up people to do these tours in other places because we believe that if people don't stand up and push back, we're never, ever going to get out of our government what we want. I'm sorry. I don't think I can trust Bill Barr to do what he says he's going to do. We need to light a fire on them. They'll never see the light until they feel the heat. So to go to equaljusticetour.com. We are going to Chappaqua. You can come and jump in your car and drive up and support us and make some signs, indict Hillary Clinton, equal justice under the law. The Lord hates injustice. And we certainly have two systems of justice in America, and we're not going to be able to survive very long as a free nation if we continue to live under that. So that's why we're doing it.
Well, Coach Dave, I know you're going to have video up there. You had video of when you went to Chappaqua 3 weeks ago, and it's up on your website. Please, when you get back, let's have you back on, and maybe you will share some of that video with our audience, especially our TV audience. Our radio audience can go to our website, CCRShow.com, and we'll have it up on there. But we'll discuss everything that went on. How's that?
That's great, Rick. And let me ask you something. Do you think there's anything more disappointing to Jesus than a cowardly Christian? I can't think of anything that would offend him more. He said, "Go ye into all the world," right? And he said, "Lo, I'll be with you always, even until the end of the earth." And you go to Revelation 21:8. It says, "Fearful and the unbelieving." The cowards, he does not appreciate cowardice. That doesn't mean that we're not afraid. There's nothing wrong with being afraid, but brother, there's something wrong with staying afraid. And I'm finding a group of men across this nation who are no longer going to be controlled by fear.
Well, Coach Dave, that's a whole other can of worms we can open. We don't have time for it, but I'll respond for this. Jesus Christ knew what his fate was. He wasn't afraid of that, right? So there, in that, you might find your answer how I feel
scared. About it. Rick, he was scared, and he prayed next. There's some other way to do this. I don't really want to do this, Dad, if there's some other way to do it. Right. But when he faced his fear and he went and did it, and thank God that he did. Thank God he didn't just stay in the garden and prayed, but he actually got up and went to that cross. And we have that liberty today because of that.
All right. Coach Dave Daubenmire, this is going to be the first time I know, I feel it in my bones because I booked the guests. This is the first time of many that you'll be here with us on Conservative Commandos. But please tell our audience where they could go to read your article, Party of Death. Please tell them where they could find out more about the Equal Justice Tour.
Well, they can go to Coach Dave Live. That's me. I'm Coach Dave, and I'm live. CoachDaveLive.com. And in fact, Rick, I do a morning show 5 days a week that really, really rocks. It's not for the timid. It's not for the sissified. It's for those who really want to make a difference in the cause of Christ. That's at CoachDaveLive.com. It's all free, archived, a lot of great stuff at that website. And the EqualJusticeTour.com is its own website, and it'll show you what we're going to do in Chappaqua here in about 5 days.
All right. Coach Dave Daubenmire, we want to thank you once again for joining us. Take care and God bless.
Amen. Thanks, brothers.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show with George Landrith and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. George and I will be back with more right after this break.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving, and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, But where do you find it? You call Low Cost Airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Well, George, that just about wraps it up for today's show. I want to thank you for sitting in as my co-host today. Please tell our audience how they could find out more about you and Frontiers of Freedom.
Sure. Well, Frontiers of Freedom's website is easy, ff.org, ff.org. I'm on Twitter just under George, or under G Landrith, Glandrith.
Right. And George, please thank our guest.
Absolutely. Well, we had some great guests today. What a wonderful conversation. We started off with Timothy Snowball of the Pacific Legal Foundation. Great conversation with him about socialism. Then we went to Seton Motley, the president of Less Government, and I had a great conversation about education and how the left is trying to take over the internet entirely. And then we concluded with Coach Dave Daubenmire, and just really great conversation about how, as Christians, we ought to make sure we stand up for the truth that we believe in and not be bullied by the left, because that's what they'd like to do. Just tell us to sit down and shut up and go along for the ride.
All right. And again, George, thank you so much. But for right now, we are out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on TV and on radio.